This is where the city's true magic lies. In this episode of History Hops, join us as we look at 3 local gems that will reveal where Hanoi's charm comes from. But before we embark on our journey, if you like these videos, you should click that like button and subscribe to my channel. Okay, let's hop back in. If there's one place to start exploring Hanoi's rich history, it's the Citadel of Thăng Long, a timeless UNESCO World Heritage Site that has stood for over 1,000 years. It was constructed in the 11th century by the Le Viet dynasty, and the Citadel served as a resolute declaration of independence from Imperial Chinese rule. Inside its fortified walls, sprawled palaces, pavilions, towers, pagodas, temples, and shrines. It's an elaborate tapestry of royal life and governance. But, despite its grandeur, the citadel fell into disuse in 1805 after the capital was relocated to Hue by the Nguyen dynasty. When the French arrived in 1897, they were determined to reshape Hanoi and erase much of the independent past. They dismantled much of the citadel to pave the way for their modern city. But the occupation was marked by recklessness, as French soldiers repurposed parts of the citadel for their own barracks and even used the site as a shooting range. More tragedy struck during the Vietnam War, when the citadel was used as the headquarters for the People's Army of Vietnam, endured heavy American bombings during Operation Rolling Thunder. And yet, despite this turmoil, archaeologists embarked on a mission in 2002 to unearth the citadel's buried stories, unveiling relics and artifacts long buried with this ancient history. These objects can now be seen in the on-site museums. Today, the Citadel is next to the National Assembly, a blend of ancient and modern governance. As we depart this political center and return to the winding streets of Hanoi, why not indulge in banh con, a delicate rice crepe, an ancient Vietnamese delicacy that still tantalizes taste buds today, filled with woodier mushrooms and ground pork topped with fried shallots. From 1883 until the Japanese invasion of 1940, northern Vietnam bore the unforgettable marks of French colonial influence. But amidst the colonial backdrop, a distinct district emerged. The French Quarter, the glittering jewel within the French colonial crown. It's a harmonious blend of Western lifestyle and Vietnamese culture. This is one of the best examples in the world of French colonial urbanism, or French rebuilding of cities to mimic their own. You see, Hanoi was meant to be the Paris of French Indochina, a smaller copy of the French capital in Southeast Asia. And to do this, the French colonists tried to eliminate the old ways of life. They built a lot. From the cultural opera house to the luxurious Hotel Metropole, or even the very location of St. Joseph's Cathedral, built on the ruins of an ancient, important pagoda site. In addition to these magnificent buildings, the French also upgraded and expanded the network of streets and turned many of them into the large boulevards we see in Hanoi today. But beyond the grandeur of this area lies a rich cultural exchange. Today's Vietnamese have adapted these colonial styles and have created a distinct Hanoi feel. Many of these facades of the houses around this area were copies of common colonial Chinese shops in the large trading hubs of Southeast Asia. From bustling cafes to vibrant art galleries, the French Quarter thrives as a melting pot of creativity. So while you're here, why not indulge in a local fusion drink, in a Vietnamese egg coffee? This drink was created while there was a shortage of milk after the Japanese occupation in 1945. It's a tasty Vietnamese twist on the French drip coffee. Fast forward a few years to 1954, and following the defeat of the French at Dien Bien Phu, northern Vietnam underwent a serious transformation. The new leadership turned away from the West in favor of their communist allies. That is, until the 1980s would usher in a new era of globalization to the Vietnam capital. In the 1980s, Vietnam began a transformative reopening to the world with the Doi Moi reforms. It opened itself up to international trade and globalization at an unprecedented pace. Nowhere is this evolution more palpable in the city than in Hanoi's Old Quarter, also known as the 36 Streets. But what many people don't know is that the commercialization of this area has much older roots than the 80s. The Old Quarter has been in existence since the city was founded under the name Thang Long. In fact, the street pattern goes back all the way to the 15th century. Each street in the area specialized in a particular craft or sale of a specific type of good, similar to European medieval guilds. These trade streets were populated by migrants from the Red River Delta, organized into guilds based on their shared origins. They built temples and pagodas to worship their own local deities in Hanoi. You can still see these buildings today, dotted around the Old Quarter. Even when the capital later moved to Hue, the economic activities within the Old Quarter of Hanoi continued to flourish and expanded the city, as eventually the city was renamed in 1831 to Hanoi, which means the city located within the rivers. This economic boom lasted all the way to the French colonization. But during the initial rule of communism, the area had a steep decline, as capitalism was seen as the enemy and it nearly destroyed the neighborhood. With the Doi Moi reforms in 1986, the entrepreneurial spirit was reborn, and this time, almost exclusively in retail. Individuals and their families now became the most important actors affecting the development of this ancient quarter. The grassroots economic boom started by everyday people turned their homes into private retail outlets, thus attracting street vendors and fostering a dynamic marketplace. Enter the Hanoi street hawkers, who not only fed the busy workers in the area, but brought with them one of the most famous street foods of Hanoi today, bun cha. This tasty dish originated in the streets of Hanoi, where it has been enjoyed for generations. This dish consists of nicely grilled and seasoned pork meatballs and thin slices of pork belly that are served with rice vermicelli noodles, fresh herbs, and the well-known Vietnamese dipping sauce, nuoc cham. It has reached such international popularity that even President Barack Obama tried it while on a state visit to the country. With the economic boom of the past 20 years, the historic charm of this quarter is under threat. Rising land prices have led to commercial redevelopment, posing challenges to preserve the district's historic character. This transformation highlights the delicate balance between heritage conservation and economic development. The once beautiful, ancient buildings and houses are constantly being knocked down or modified to accommodate the influx of tourists. Many locals have capitalized on this increased land value by remodeling their houses bigger and higher than ever before. Some even going as far as reconstructing their homes into mini luxury hotels. But all in all, it is important to remember that this is the source of the area's vitality. And as much as some tourists have doomed the charm and character of the city to international gentrification, I see it more as a destiny to be embraced rather than feared. It is, after all, a testimony to the city's people and their resiliency in the face of change. If you're interested in visiting this historic city for yourself, or others like it, then you might want to book those flight tickets as soon as possible. Because Hanoi's charm grows when it faces new challenges and writes its own story for tomorrow. If you liked this episode of History Hops, why not subscribe to the channel for more discoveries just like this?